Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Maktima out on the water. Beautiful day out today. So, anyway, just wanted to go through uh, kind of a crossover rig. A lot of my other videos have been on Euro nymphing and that sort of thing. But for those who aren't familiar with Euro nymphing or just getting into it or just don't have any interest in it, I got a pretty sweet crossover rig that'll utilize an indicator, but at the same time use components of the Euro nymphing rig to help you be a little more tuned in with your drift and your presentation. So starting off today, just rod wise, I'm using a 10-foot 4-weight. This will help me turn over a nymph rig, but at the same time, cast at further distance, because today I'll probably be working on some deeper, slower moving water. So, having some distance and covering some water is going to help in that regard, hopefully get into some fish. So just a standard tapered leader, 7.5, 2x, but then I chop it back to the 1x mark. And the reason why I go to 1x is because I am using sighter material at the 1x diameter for my sighter, and just joined with a blood knot, nice clean knot for thicker tippet material. And then as I go down, at the bottom end here, I do have a tippet ring, and what I've done is off my tippet ring at the end of the sighter, this is 5x, because I am running some small nymphs, so I want to have a pretty decent sink rate coming off of these nymphs here, size 18 type Perdigone stuff. But I've left a tag, and I'll explain why I left the tag here in a moment. And then down, looking at about 2 feet to my first knot, and then my still utilizing a dropper type setup as indicative of the Euro nymphing. So I've left my tag from this section down long about 8 inches, and then I have my first nymph, and then as my flies hang, I'm going to continue to reduce the amount of snagging. I got my second nymph down here about 20 inches, foul hooking, I mean. But just to show you, this sighter material is about 3 feet long, and the reason why I have it about 3 feet, and my overall length from the bottom of the sighter at the tippet ring to my bottom fly is about 4 feet, 4.5 feet. I don't want to go too short, but this sighter actually gives me some adjustability with the indicator, and I'm using an airlock indicator. It's got the screw bottom on here, and it just helps me adjust without having to put a whole lot of kinks into my leader. So at my shallowest or least amount, I can just slide it all the way down, tighten it up, and it's not going to go anywhere, and that'll be my depth at that point. But you have these nice little increments using the sighter, the two-tone sighter material here, so you can actually fine-tune and adjust your depth a little more precisely. So I can bring it up to here, or even go all the way up to the second color transition. And at this point, before I tighten it down, I'm just going to do a little half hitch around the post of the airlock, and then I can tighten it down, and that's going to lock it in place, because this thinner diameter tippet, it won't lock sufficiently well enough, especially if you're casting and having to punch your cast a little bit harder. And so the benefit to having your sighter material, especially at this point down below, is when your cast lands, you can actually, especially in clear water, it might be a little bit of a challenge in the conditions we're going to see today as far as visibility, but you can actually see this tippet sink and determine which direction your subsurface currents are pushing. Again, your hydraulics between the surface and the bottom of the river, sometimes they're not linear. They don't follow the same progression in speed of current, and so you may have your nymphs slide ahead, and so that'll allow you to make them in and adjust your drift accordingly. That way you're maximizing the amount of contact. And you're asking, why am I doing the nymphs off of a drop tag and my point fly and my dropper and that sort of thing? It's to maintain as much independent contact between both flies to my indicator directly. Again, going back to this little tag that I left here, so if I do get into a situation where it may be shallower and it may be, a little slower moving, so instead of using the indicator, I can actually just tie a dry fly straight to that, and my presentation will be a little more subtle, less plop, and that way I can get on these fish, especially if I'm thinking there might be a bigger fish or something like that where they could be spooky. that'll help me in that situation. So I have some versatility with this rig. And how I get that tag is I just did an improved clinch knot and left my tag long. You know, we may see some flies like blueing olives coming off, where all I need to do is just eliminate the indicator. If I have a dry dropper, I can just cut that guy off. But even at the same time, all I do is clip my nymphs and then tie my Baetis pattern directly to my point, and I'm good to go. I can still turn over the cast with this leader and setup. So a little bit of insight as to what I've done as far as making this a little bit more accessible to all anglers and water situations. So right now we'll go ahead and go fish. So come on, let's go. All right, well, that's it for out in the water today. I don't know if you're able to see me all that well. It's getting dark right now, but just to recap, running a crossover indicator Euro nymph rig. Hopefully in some of those segments you'll notice, you know, it's deep, slow moving water, so the indicator definitely helps keep your drift at distance without you having to encroach too tight and creating pressure waves to spook the fish. And in one segment, I actually took off the indicator once I got into some faster moving riffle water, and did really well with Euro nymphing. Just all I had to do was take the indicator off. So anyway, hope that helps. Get on the water sometime soon. You know where to find me. High Desert Angler, highdesertangler.com, 505-988-7688. As well, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. So, all right, get on the water. I told you so. Later.